San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee was elected to office last November after having been appointed interim mayor in January when his predecessor, Gavin Newsom, was sworn in as lieutenant governor. A longtime city employee and former city administrator, he is the first Asian American mayor of San Francisco. While his style may be less flamboyant than some of his predecessors, there have been plenty of excitement during his first year in office. I spoke with Mayor Lee earlier. Welcome, Mayor Ed Lee. Good to have you on the program. Let's start on a high note. Okay, if you had the opportunity to name the thing that you are most proud of after becoming mayor, what would it be?
I've worked really hard on just trying to create an investor confidence in this city and really restore back the economic recovery. And it's so important for our cities across the country, including San Francisco, to work hard at our economics. And so when I was interim mayor last year, we did pension reform. That was extremely important. We had to really gain some leverage and control around that. I closed a $385 million budget deficit, found ourselves a great police chief, and then there was this little company called Twitter, 450 people at the time, that said, hey, if you don't help us out, we're going to have to leave the city. And by gosh, working with the Board of Supervisors, that was one of the most marvelous things we've done, because guess what's happened? Now we have over 304 technology companies who have felt the confidence in the city. They're moving in, they're creating jobs, and we're the third lowest unemployment rate in the whole state of California because of technology and all the other wonderful things that are happening in the public and private sector.
Well, let's move to the intractable problems: homelessness, housing crisis, affordability of housing for some people. And though you've said you've got a handle on the budget, I mean, you came from being the city administrator, so at least you knew how things worked. Are these problems that are going to be solved in your lifetime, my lifetime?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I think we've got a good a record to achieve the foundation to make them more successful. Take, for example, housing. Yes, everybody's complaining about the affordability or the lack of housing. Well, we've got something on the ballot this year, Proposition C, Housing Trust Fund, creating an ability to have $50 million a year for the next 30 years. That will replace what redevelopment used to do for us in building affordable housing, but also in concert and in full collaboration with the Board of Supervisors, is having first responders and police officers and firefighters be able to partake in that housing trust fund by having a portion of it used for first-time home buyers and their down payment challenges.
Certainly the Central Subway project is a very controversial one. There's somewhat hard feelings between those in North Beach and those in Chinatown. Getting to the need for it, first of all, I wish you'd speak to. How do you bring these communities together?
For me, it's been actually quite easy. You just point to the crowdedness of that 30 Stockton Street bus every single day and every afternoon. It's so filled that people can hardly get on. They have to wait 2 or 3 buses down the road. What does that say to us getting around the city? And then the second point I'd want to make for them is, where is our new housing residents going to live in the city? They're going to live in Hunters Point. They're going to live in Visitation Valley. We have that evidence. It's factual. People are buying and renting housing down there because of the overcrowded conditions that exist in all of our other parts of the city. So how do they get around the city? It's the Central Subway. It's our Muni system. And this extension will allow residents in that area to be able to visit all the way through Chinatown.
So how are you going to handle Proposition F, that the proposition that will go before voters that eventually would require tearing down or disengaging the Hetch Hetchy Water Project?
Well, that's right. And the first thing we do, Belva, for this Proposition F is that we explain to the public what it really does. It will ask us to spend money to study how we drain Hetch Hetchy. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's the truth. And that's not a good proposition. It's not a good use of money, not a good use of our whole system at the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. We've been spending billions of ratepayers' dollars to build up that system to make sure our water is safe, it's delivered well, not just to San Francisco, but to the whole Bay Area counties that depend upon that clean water. So it's a Trojan horse for those who have proposed this, and we're exposing it, and we believe we'll win this argument not only just with a small margin. Once we get the story out that it attempts to drain our Hetch Hetchy, I think the public will agree that this is not a good proposition.
We are a city of neighborhoods, and in one neighborhood, the Castro district, there's this problem of men who walk around in daylight hours naked. As a mayor, is that something, there's nothing that you could do about that, or do you consider that even a problem?
Well, obviously, if that affects kids that are going to school or times of the day where the exposure isn't appropriate, we should do something about that. That's not acceptable. At the same time, I've got to balance that off with people's First Amendment rights. This is a town where that's extremely valued, but there are conditions and terms in which that could be permitted yet unpermitted when our kids are exposed. So we're gonna be dealing with that.
What are you going to do about Ross Mirkarine?
The charter required the mayor to take a look at all the facts. What Mr. Mirkarimi, as the elected sheriff, pled to in court, and he did plead to committing a degree of violence, domestic violence, and he pleaded to false imprisonment. I had to make a decision as to whether that amounted to official misconduct, which I did conclude it did, and I believe that the office of the sheriff should not tolerate that kind of behavior, and therefore made the recommendation he be suspended, and he was. The Ethics Commission supported my finding in a 4-to-1 vote, and they are about to proceed on making that recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and they'll have 30 days to act on that.
Well, it was a fast lope through many problems, but we thank you so much, Mayor Ed Lee, for being on the program.
It's my pleasure to be on the show with you, Belva. Thank you very much for your 3 decades of great work.